This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello, and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Fraser. I'm Vicky Fraser, and this is my husband, Joe.
Hello. How many iterations of your name have you gone through in the last few months?
2.
2?
Yeah.
Just remembering.
Oh, I've changed it by default now. It's great. Yeah. So we are being uncomfortably close to each other in the style of Star Trek today, because I've realised that I find it difficult to get a screen grab to share on social media because we're always like on opposite sides of the screen. So I thought we'd be close to each other like this.
Which is great.
So welcome to the podcast.
What are we talking about?
We can stop that now.
Okay, cool.
So we are on episode 260.
Oh my god.
I know. And somewhat fittingly, after 260 episodes, this episode is called The Joy of Boredom.
Right.
But first, good slurping noise, thank you for that. But first, what are you reading, Joe?
I'm very nearly finished the Wilderness Tips by Margaret Atwood.
Ooh, is that short stories?
It is short stories.
Is it good?
Yes. I kind of don't get short stories though.
Why?
Because
Do they leave you wanting more?
you just kind of read a thing and then it stops and then you're on to the next one. And they're just little bites of
Life.
life. Or imagination, as the case may be. And yeah, I don't get it.
Okay.
I always feel a bit like that could have been a book. Why was it 10 pages?
Because I think, do you know what? I think sometimes people write short stories for the sake of writing short stories because they want to write a short story. But I think other times short stories do later become longer books. Because, like you say, it's like, oh, that could have been a book. And maybe it doesn't become a book because the writer just isn't interested in it, which is perfectly reasonable. Or maybe it was just a standalone short story. Sometimes you've got to leave people wanting more.
Yeah.
I like short stories.
I find them a little bit unsatisfying.
Fair. That's fair. I am reading, my fiction book is The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly. I think it's John Connolly. It's definitely called The Book of Lost Things.
Okay.
And it's... So I wasn't sure about it at first. It's kind of like fairy tales. It's set in the Second World War because there's German bombers and things. Mm-hmm. And it's a boy who, honestly, I think needs a bit of a shake. Because he's just a bit of a brat. I mean, he has like a tough time and his mom dies and stuff, but then he treats his...
Oh, well, yeah, he probably needs a good... Yeah,
no,
good disciplining.
but his stepmother is lovely and he treats her like crap because he's a brat. So, anyway, so I got a bit annoyed with him. I sympathise with him because obviously it's really horrible, but then it was like, well, don't treat people like that. Don't be a brat. Anyway, and he disappears into this other world. And it's all about kind of fairy tales and a fairy tale world and all the rest of it. And I suspect there's something to do with, him retreating into a world that suits him. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I wasn't sure about it, and now I'm kind of about quarter of the way through and I'm quite enjoying it, so I'm going to keep giving it a chance.
Okay.
Yeah. And my non-fiction book is I'm just about to start What Great Storytellers Know by Bernadette Dewar, so I haven't really got anything to say about that yet, but I will do by next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What did you just finish?
I've just finished Word Slut by Amanda Montell, which I love. It's really good. Really good.
Really good. People should read that.
You should read that. I mean, I've read quite a lot of it out to you. So
Yes, you do that.
But you should read it. It's really good. And this week, what we've been doing this week at Casa Dingle, we've been making skirting boards that aren't skirting boards, or you have mostly, and I helped a bit.
Yeah, they're kind of like...
Edging boards.
Edging boards for, laminate floors, except they're not laminate floors, they're oak boards.
So we've got, in our attic bedroom, we've laid an solid oak floor, and it's beautiful. And
but it's not like we've put oak on top of the subfloor.
No.
Oak is the only floor.
Yeah, so we've got the joists and then the oak, and then because all of the walls are like lime plaster and timber frame and wonky, you don't they don't go up, and because they're so wonky, and also because of the nature of them, a normal skirting board would just wouldn't look very nice.
I mean, you could do it if you had big, thick skirting boards and loads of like cork or plaster or something down the back, but you'd have to be able to fill the gaps.
Yeah,
There'd
and
be big gaps, and you'd have to fill them.
It would be a faff, and I think it'd be ugly. And so what we did was we flipped the skirting board over and made it flat, and then horizontal skirting board, and we've made an edging to. It's really lovely. If you go to projectdingle.co.uk, you can see what we've done, and I'll shut up about it. But also the other thing that we did was at the weekend we went for a walk around to see our neighbours because their goats have just had baby goats, and so I spent a happy half hour sitting on the floor in the stable, literally covered in baby goats, like 3 or 4 day old goats. They were climbing all over me and mountaineering onto my shoulders and bouncing around, and they are so cute. And they've got, their names are Curry the goat, Carrot, Cucumber, what was the other one? I can't remember what the other one was. Oh. And there's a baby tiny sheep. So, we've got our tiny sheep. There's a baby tiny sheep also called Cloud, and another baby tiny sheep on its way.
So for this family, this year's animals are all beginning with C.
Yes.
In case you hadn't guessed. Next year, it'll be D's.
Yeah, they're so cute. They're so cute. And so, yes, don't worry, though. Curry the goat is not going to become goat curry. There's no way, because they are really soft on their animals, and they're not breeding for anything other than fun. And also, I've said if it's going to become a goat curry, then I'm going to have we
will get them a curry, and we will give the goat.
I will have the goat. So yes, that is what we have been doing. And so I think we ought to start talking about the Joy of Boredom.
The Joy of Boredom. Okay.
Starting with Victor Hugo and his flea-ridden blanket.
I do not know much about Victor Hugo and his flea-ridden blanket, so I'm afraid this one's on you.
It might not have had fleas, but I'm extrapolating from the available information. So, you've heard of Victor Hugo, right?
Hugo.
Victor Hugo.
Yes.
He wrote The Hunchback of Notre-Dame, amongst other things.
Yes.
He was supposed to have delivered...
A blanket. He had a blanket.
He was supposed to have delivered The Hunchback of Notre-Dame to his publisher by July 1830. And right. July 1830 came and went, as did the publisher's deadline, whooshed over his head. Mm-hmm. Because Victor Hugo had been too busy gallivanting around with his buddies. And basically partying around like it was 1899. And he did not sit down and do the damn work. And his publisher had kind of kept being like, and then lost their temper and were like, dude, you need to send this book that you promised us, or we're going to take all our money back. Mm-hmm. Which is what publishers tend to do when you don't send them things that you've been paid for. And he was like, okay. And
having presumably drunk and partied all of the advances away.
Almost certainly, yeah. And so he drama-llamaed his way around and wailed and gnashed his teeth and begged and pleaded and negotiated, and they extended his deadline to February 1831. Whereupon he decided that a grand gesture was called for. Mm-hmm. And so he got rid of all of his clothes,
right,
had them locked away, and I think got rid of most of his furniture as well, and just left himself a blanket. And it was the 1830s, so it was probably flea-ridden. Right. And because he only had this blanket, not even his underwear, it must have been really scratchy. And he couldn't go out. You can't go out in a blanket in the 1830s in Paris. If you're, a gentleman of a certain standing, because you're basically naked in the streets with a flea-ridden blanket. And so he had no choice but to write. It was just and I think he'd given one of his friends, or possibly the publisher actually, strict instructions not to give him his clothes back until he'd delivered the manuscript. And he had no money either.
Right.
So, and that made him write, and he wrote. He sat down and wrote, and he delivered it a month early. And that's what he did, and that was his grand gesture.
That was his technique.
Yes. If only he had had a habit and, been comfortable with boredom instead of being like, I'm going to go out partying. I'm not going to do the thing that I said I was going to do.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Which brings me to me and my ridiculous trip to Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, when was that? It was 2018, I think, wasn't it?
A couple of years ago,
yeah. It's 3 years ago now.
3 years ago.
Although 2020 doesn't really count as a year, does it?
I think we should, it just didn't happen, did it?
No. I mean, it's still going on. So yes, I was trying to write a book and failing to write a book. And so I thought, I'm going to go to Turkey on my own for a week. And I had everything I needed. I had solitude, I had a laptop, I had my notes,
change of scene.
I had change of scene, I had my big idea. and I had all of the determination. And I realised when I got back, I had a look at the file, and I wrote the grand total of 2,753 words, which is barely an article.
It's not a lot of words.
And otherwise, I mean, I did find some really cool stuff. I went on lots of walks, and I found an amazing abandoned village, and I bought you a beautiful chess set, backgammon set.
It's true. But you did not write a book.
Did not write a book, no. Because I was trying to escape the humdrumness of, just sitting down and doing the damn work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do. These grand gestures are futile, and I think we're sold, we read stories like Victor Hugo's, thing. Victor Hugo's, I'm going to sell all of my clothes and live in a blanket, and that is how I'm going to write my book. And there's this kind of stupid romantic myth about writers and how we get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I have to suffer
for your art.
For my art, which is bullshit. And I have to do this massive thing, and it's the only way it will ever get done. And and it's easy to sell that as well. It's like,
it's nice and dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah, if you want to do this thing, you have to make this grand gesture.
Live in a cave.
Yeah.
Become a hermit.
Yeah. And there is virtues to, you can maybe go and do something like that, but don't kid yourself that is going to be the only way that you're going to write your book, because it ain't. It's like, there was nothing wrong, because I went to Lanzarote with 3 friends, and we went and wrote for a week.
Mm-hmm. And you actually did write.
I actually did write, but part of the reason I wrote is because I had 3 people there who were encouraging me, and I would have felt really stupid, and also like a bad friend if I had been gallivanting off while they were writing.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I had already built a writing habit by then, and I just thought, we could go on a writing retreat and help each other, and it would be a solid block of time for me to write in. But that's not why I got the book done. I got the book done in a compressed amount of time. But I had already laid all the foundations and done all the groundwork and, all of that kind of thing. So there's nothing wrong with taking yourself off somewhere, and I have run and will run again when the world allows us to, writing retreats, because they're wonderful. They're wonderful things.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the only way to get big stuff done is to do the dumb work and get comfortable with boredom. Because we fall in love with the idea of, we've got to do something dramatic and fun. And no wonder, because it's dramatic and fun, right? So we're like, I'm going to go on holiday and I'm going to go zip wiring and blah, blah, blah. And that's cool. But trying to, and I think this is partly why I struggle to sell and bring people into Team Moxie and the Power Hour, because coming to write with a bunch of people for a day, for an hour, doesn't sound that interesting,
It's not that exciting.
It's not. And on the face of it, you have to come and try it, which is why, by the way, I offer 7 days for £1. Come and try us out and see how awesome it is. Because honestly, the people who join never bloody leave, because they understand the power of, I don't want to even say the power of boredom, but the power of habit and just doing a thing, routine, yeah. And it sounds dull, and it's really difficult to market that, because people are like, I'm really creative and I don't want boundaries, man. And it's just like, those people who think that creativity is a messy desk and just fucking about all day and doing what you want, they don't get that much done. The people who are truly successful at what they do, however you measure success, are the ones who have a system and a routine and make sure that they do the damn work. And that's not really that sexy, I don't think. It's like, okay, here is an example. Let's take the example of exotic pole dancing, strippers on poles, and all of those the ultimate sexy moves. If you could see the work that goes on behind the scenes, and you've seen the work that goes on behind the scenes to that, the bruises and the face planting and the falling on your face and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again until you can make it look like you can do it without even thinking. And that's the reality of it. So you don't just walk up to a pole or a trapeze and
do that thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen. And it's the same with writing. You don't just go away for a week and magically come back with a book. Even if you go away for a week, you've got to sit down and do the damn work. So yeah, that's really all I've got to say about that. What do you think?
Yes.
Thank you for your contribution.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not sexy, is it? You got to form a habit, I think, for me. I'm very habit dependent.
Yeah.
And then once you have the habit, you're not making a decision. Because if you have to make a decision every time, you're like, I'm going to sit down and write some words, or I'm going to go and practice this thing, or I'm going to go and train for that, or whatever it is you're choosing to do. If you don't have a habit, then every time you want to do that thing, you make a decision as to whether you're going to do it or not. And it's like the Scottish referendum, you keep asking the same question, and sooner or later you're going to get the answer you want. If you keep having that vote, sooner or later the answer is going to be yes, let's leave. So same goes for work.
That was a bizarre example.
If every time you're going to sit down and do some work or write or train or whatever, you think about it and you make a decision whether you're going to do it or not, quite often the answer is going to be not, and you're not going to do it. Whereas if you have a habit, then you don't have to make that decision because that's just what you do.
Yeah. I mean, decision fatigue is a real thing, isn't it? Because there were jokes about Steve Jobs wearing the same outfit every day. And the reason that he gave was because, he has lots of big decisions to make. But I'm listening to Barack Obama's audiobook at the moment, his Promised Land, which, by the way, is awesome and I love it. But he talks about the same thing. He's like, I have... when he was president, he had a wardrobe full of suits that were all exactly the same. And he's like, I have world-changing decisions to make every day. I don't want to have to wake up and make a decision about what suit to wear because it saps that little bit of energy. Because decision fatigue is a real thing. So the fewer decisions that you can put in front of yourself every day, like Joe just said, the more likely you are to sit down and do the thing. Remove the friction.
Yeah.
But that's not, that's not an easy thing to sell. Because all of the shouty, shiny internet gurus and people on the internet...
They're going to 10x your business tomorrow.
You're going to 10x your business tomorrow, and I don't even get me fucking started on that bullshit. But yeah, and they will sell this idea that all you have to do is this one really cool thing and your whole life will change. And it is a lie. It is a barefaced, flat-out lie. I'm not even going to soften that by saying, oh, they mean well. It's like they don't. It's a fucking lie.
They're selling you a thing.
They're selling you a thing to make money. And they know at the core of themselves that their thing will help a tiny fraction of people who are very similar to them. Because we've all bought a thing, right? Where we're like, oh, this thing's going to change your life and it's a really cool course and blah, blah, blah. And you do it and you're like, this doesn't work for me. And you start to think there's something wrong with you. Because they've got all of these testimonials, and then you start to learn that there's a clause in the terms and conditions of buying a thing that means that you can't leave a testimonial that's negative, right? And that's a thing that these people do. Yeah, that's a thing that these people do, and they will come after you if you leave a negative review for them.
Nice.
Which just makes me feel sick and rage in my belly. But yeah, they know that their things don't, I'm not saying that they're totally useless, but the results that they put out there, and if you look at the small print, it always says at the bottom in tiny letters, results aren't typical. It's like, well, don't fucking claim that they are then. And I feel like I've wandered off.
Yeah, we weren't going to go into this, remember? I said 10x your business. You said, don't get me started, and then you started ranting.
I did. But I'm not even sorry, because it's important. And people should know this. They should. They should know this. Just be really wary of like results claims. Anyway, but the point was that they are usually a thing or a big grand gesture or, something that claims, one thing that will claim to change your life or your business.
Do this thing and everything's fixed.
Yes. And what they don't tell you and what they won't ever tell you, because it's not a sexy thing to say, is that, no, the way things change is the small habitual changes every day.
Yeah.
It's like, giving up, I stopped... Oh, I thought there was someone in the garden then. It's like, when I stopped drinking alcohol, it was like, it wasn't a giant grand gesture. I don't think I even told anybody. I barely even told you. And I just changed my habit quietly. It's like, and now I don't drink. I have no desire to drink. And it was a small thing. It's made a massive difference to my life. And that's not a grand gesture where I'm like, I'm going to lock myself away in a cave and...
Go cold turkey and have a terrible time and all, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, just a really quiet habit change. And that is the thing that, that's going to make a bigger difference to my life than, for example, I don't know, deep diving the Mariana Trench. Because it's, do you know what I mean? Though it's like one big grand thing that's like, I'm gonna climb Mount Everest versus a lifelong habit.
Yes.
That's going to make a big difference to my life. But, climbing Mount Everest sounds much more exciting than stopping drinking alcohol. It just does. So, yeah, that's my thing. What's the takeaway?
Stop looking for big grand gestures, form a habit and do the work.
Yeah. And it really is as simple as that. Except it's not really that simple because, forming new habits, it takes 60 to 90 days to form a new habit and have it stick. So, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do, and whether you do this with me or somebody else, and I don't know anybody else who does something quite like my Team Moxie Power Hours, by the way, certainly not as well as I do them. They're awesome. And they're awesome not because of me, but because of the people in the group.
Sure.
But yeah, whether you do it with me or somebody else, I really recommend that you create a time and space for yourself to write every day. Just for an hour. And the people who come to Team Moxie, like Carol says and Louise says all the time, that their days are more productive and more structured because that first hour of every day at 7 a.m. is for writing, and that's what they come and do. And after that, their day follows on from that.
Yeah.
And I know that it's the same for me. If I miss a day for whatever reason, if I can't do a day, and Harriet takes it for me. Thank you, Harriet. My day I don't like it. My day feels weird and screwed up.
Yeah.
And I'm not as productive. I'm never as productive. So whether you do something like that with me or somebody else, and if you do want to try it out for £1 for 7 days, by the way, go to moxiebooks.co.uk/power hour. There is no obligation to stay afterwards, although you will absolutely want to. And just come and be amazed at how much you can get done in an hour a day, or 2 hours a day if you come to both sessions, as some people do.
Oof.
I know, right? So yes, there is that. Stop looking for a big grand gesture that's going to change your life because you're being sold a song. It's not going to happen. It might make you feel good briefly. It might have a little bit of fun. I'm not saying that these things aren't at all helpful, but they won't be the life-changing things unless you change the underlying habits and actions that you take.
Cool.
When that comes to writing a book, you just got to sit down and do the work. With a bit of help. Always helps. So yeah, I have, and also on that note, I have a small group coaching starting in June, late June, early July, which the working title at the moment is the Shitty First Draft Society, because the idea is that we will get your shitty first draft written, and it won't even be shitty by the time you're done. It will be a sparkling first draft. But there's no pressure on it to be any good, you see. You're just going to get the first draft done in 3 months, and I am going to walk you through how to do the whole thing. 3 months, really cool group of people. If that's something that you might be interested in, drop me an email, vicky@moxiebooks.co.uk, and I will make sure you are among the first to know.
And that includes weekly first sessions, feedbacks, Q&As, all kinds of support.
Yeah, if you get your assignments to me by the end of each week, I will give you feedback on every single one of them. There's a weekly call every Friday to set up what we're doing the next week, and to Q&A every week. You get free membership of Team Moxie for 3 months as well,
Cool.
To actually get your writing done, so it gives you time and space. And there is what else did I say? Oh, you get a free bonus wildcard 30-minute one-to-one session with me to use at any time throughout the programme as well.
When you hit the wall, they can come to you.
Yep. And it's going to be epic. I'm really very, very excited about it.
Cool. Sounds great.
Yeah. So hit me up with an email if you're interested in that. Coming up next week, I don't really know. I've got written down what if we're not arguing to win, but who knows? Turn up and find out what we're talking about next week. And thank you for listening.
Cool.
Oh no, we have to do the, if you've listened to every episode, email me with your postal address and I will send you something silly to say thank you.
Cool.
And if you like this episode,
rate it 5 stars.
Wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. If you could rate it on iTunes, that would be awesome. Please, thanks. And if you don't like this podcast,
other podcasts are available.
I'm not really sure why you're still listening to this one. But thank you, as always, dear listener, for listening to us ramble our way through this podcast.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, I don't think there are enough tiny sheep or goats in our podcasts.
Do you think?
Yeah.
We could get a sheep in here for next week.
We're not getting a sheep in my office. Can you imagine?
I think it'd be pretty cool.
Bronson would just wee everywhere.
Bring a sheep in.
Good lord. No.
Okay, no sheep. Bye!
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.